All right, we're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's regular council meeting. If you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. City of Anamosa City Council Agenda, regular session, Monday, March 23rd, 2026, 6 p.m. Anamosa Library and Learning Center. 1.0 roll call.
Trump.
Here.
Hickman. Here. Shada.
Here.
Weimer.
Here.
Dan Smith.
Here.
Hurt.
Here.
All 6 council members are present in chambers. 2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3.0 Consent Agenda Review and Approve. There are 2 items listed on this evening's agenda. I will read both off, after which council can make a motion that includes the word consent, which will bring both items up for discussion and a single vote. Or council can make a motion on any of the individual items. Item A, minutes from March 9th, 2026, regular session. Item B, current bills.
Move to approve consent.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich. Council, you can discuss both of the items.
On the bills, underneath, I think it's underneath wastewater, the almost $210,000. It says contractor's application. What is that?
That is WRH retainage. That was approved by, was it 2 meetings ago? We had to hold it for 30 days. So this is just the payment of that. It's been delivered, but we just had to wait for the 30-day period.
The retention.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Any public comment on the items? Kaylee, would you please conduct a roll vote?
Hickman. Yes. Shada.
Yes.
Weimer.
Yes.
Dan Smith.
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Trump.
Yes.
Consent motion to approve carries. 4.0 presentations. 4.1 tax increment financing TIF. Overview of TIF development agreement and process. Spear Financial.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maggie Berger with Spear Financial. We have acted as the city's financial advisor for a few years. It's been a while since we've been down and had a direct conversation about something, but I understand that you have some questions, and I want to do a little bit of an overview of TIF and how rebate agreements work. And then I really want to open it up and let you answer or ask any questions that you may have on this process. So tax increment financing, as we all know, is when new valuation comes into play. So I basically say this is our base value, this is our blank space, this is our piece of ground, and something has to grow over and above that and produce new tax dollars. And that's what you can collect in a tax increment financing rebate agreement, are those new tax dollars. So I want to remind everybody that in that, you are not taking away any tax dollars that you've already been accustomed to or received, because you can only TIF for something that has new tax dollars that would be generated in new. In that regard, though, you are stalling the collection of some of those tax dollars to yourself, not all of them, because some do come back to you, but you are stalling the collection to your general fund of those tax dollars in a rebate agreement situation so that you can rebate those dollars out to a developer. We have the opportunity as a city and as a council to make that decision. Commercial or industrial rebate agreements can be for up to 20 years. We don't usually recommend that if you don't have to do that. Housing rebate agreements can be done for up to 10, we call it 11 years, because there's this 1 year give that the state has authorized, because there could be because of the timing of Iowa's construction, there could be a basement that gets poured, but really only has, $20,000-$30,000 worth of value in year 1 of that agreement. So we've got this 10 to 11 year agreement, and that's the council's decision and discretion. If the council decides they want to go up to 15 years on a residential TIF rebate agreement, you have the authority to ask both the school district and the county if you can institute that new residential agreement for 15 years. That has to be approved by both of those bodies before you can take approval yourself of that rebate agreement at that 15 years. Again, at the 10 to 11 year timeframe, that is the discretion of the council. Solely commercial and industrial, again, the discretion of the council solely. There's no extensions on that. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is that with housing, we have what's called low to moderate income set aside. And really what that means is for every house that you're going to incentivize or development that you're going to give an incentive to that developer, and that developer in those residential purposes is putting in the infrastructure. They're putting in the water, the sewer, the streets, maybe the sidewalk, curb, gutter, the stormwater, things like that. That's what you would be giving the incentive on. But in that situation, there's what's called low to moderate income. The state says that if you're going to give it an incentive to a developer who is selling market rate housing, and that's just normal housing, that's not a factor of low income housing or anything like that. This is someone who's building probably a $300,000 to $400,000 home. We'll say it's probably got a basement. It's probably got 2 to 3 stall garage. It's got 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. That's market rate housing. If you're giving an incentive, you have to also set aside low to moderate income dollars. That low to moderate income percent in the county, which it is a county rate, is about 39.5% right now for Jones County. And that just means for every dollar that you take in, you're going to be able to collect 39.5% for yourself, and you're going to then have the ability to rebate back the rest of those dollars to that housing developer. No commercial and industrial, there's no element necessary for that. It's only in regards to housing. So I think some of the things that you have talked about as a council and had some concerns about is, do you rebate back all then of that 60.5% to that developer, or do you only rebate back a portion of that? And that's truly up to you. The idea that you're going to be the ones who are able to set the not to exceed amount that you're going to give that developer. That developer has to prove up in a development agreement or a rebate agreement that they have spent that on infrastructure. So if the developer says the infrastructure is going to be $1.2 million, and you say, we're only going to rebate back 600,000 if we can get there, if we can get to that with these houses building, then that's the not to exceed amount you get to set. In that 10 or 11 years, if you can get that developer the $600,000, then that's, then you fulfill the agreement. If in that 10 to 11 years, the developer doesn't get 600,000 because their houses have not built out quick enough, then the agreement expires at that time. If you get the 600,000 to them, in my example, within 7-8 years, the agreement is done. It's however long it takes you to get them that 600,000, with the end date being when the agreement actually expires. And I want to put it into a little bit of perspective. When you've got a commercial building, that building is there tomorrow, right? That building gets built. The whole valuation is on the tax rolls the next time there's a valuation, change, and that's January 1st of every year. With housing, it's a little different because house 1 gets built, house 2 gets built in the first year. Then maybe in years 2 and 3, there's 6 more houses that get built. So each year as those houses come on, your valuation increases, meaning the amount you can rebate back to that developer also increases. But in those first few years, it's pretty slim if they're not building and selling homes quickly. Now, the houses are built, the developer, if the developer is the one building those houses still have to pay taxes, whether they're occupied or not. But the developer is also the one taking on the risk. So there's no incentive back to individual homeowners. The incentive goes back to the developer because it's the developer who is taking on the risk of that property, developing it against city water, sewer, stormwater, and selling those lots. So that incentive does always go back to the developer. It cannot go to the individual homeowner because under the state law, they have to be the ones putting in the infrastructure and they're not the ones doing that. So, it's a little bit of information, a lot of information actually in a short amount of time, but I'd really be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think from a perspective of what kind of comes next, if the city decides that you're going to enter into housing rebate agreements with a developer, we've provided some information that I know Jeremiah has provided to you guys, or some detailed information to say this is what it would look like, in a development agreement. Next step is bond counsel, they're going to draw up a rebate agreement for you, but they don't really want to draw that rebate agreement up for you. And it's their standard rebate agreement until you and the developer have come to terms. Just like any lawyer, they're going to charge you an hourly rate to draw that development agreement up. And we want to make sure that we're using their time and your money wisely, that development agreement is satisfactory to both you and the developer, that you've sort of come to terms. We have been on some phone calls with some developers recently on behalf of the city and talked through this. And again, it was very important to us to come and talk through this and answer any questions that you folks may have as well.
I have a question about, you're talking about rebate versus what is the upside or downside to TIF grants?
Yeah, so the downside to your TIF grant is you have to expend the money first, right? And you've got to come up with that money. That money there has to come from internal funds that you have, or that money could come from an external borrowing of sort. But again, in an external borrowing, you've got to have that money readily available. That could be in a bank loan, which still requires public hearings, urban renewal work, things like that. The way that we view it, in our opinion, and we work with TIF in about 50 of the cities that we work with, the way that we view it is a true rebate agreement, where you're only giving money on the back end, meaning after the houses are built, after those houses have paid taxes, is your safest method, because they have to perform, and I mean they, the developer, has to perform, has to build the infrastructure, has to sell those lots. Those lots have to, have a house built on them. And then that money starts to flow back in. In a grant situation, likely you would grant the money to the developer as soon as that infrastructure is complete. As I just mentioned, if that was $250,000, whatever that number was, it could be slow for those first few years. It could be 6 years before you might get your $250,000 back. So I think the one thing you have to look at is, where is that money within our city budget, or within fund balances, or do we have to go borrow it? And then again, you have some interest costs on that. I would say you would have interest costs even if you borrowed it internally, because internally your money might be gaining some interest right at the bank right now, because we've got some reinvestment rates. And if you take that money and expend it, you can charge yourself on an internal loan like that. You can charge yourself interest back because you are losing interest by that money not sitting in your bank account.
So with us competing against other cities,
Mhm.
trying to get new housing, would there be any downside for us to be doing this? I mean, all I see is good things.
Yeah.
We're looking at the future of Anamosa for us to be offering this.
Yeah. Again, I don't live in Anamosa, so I'm going to just say, on our behalf, that we view TIF as an incentive. You are correct that most communities in and around the eastern Iowa area especially, are offering incentives on housing to developers. I think what you're not experiencing by giving an incentive is, as those homes grow, you're only getting part of those new taxes back in your general fund for those first few years, right? Because most of those new taxes are going to the TIF incentive, right? They're being collected, going to the TIF incentive. But it is, in the end, when year 10 comes or you have fulfilled that rebate agreement, of that valuation rolls into your general fund. So we say this strategically, if there are phases to a housing development, it could be that every 3 or 4 years, as a new phase comes on and a new phase drops off, you're going to start to see, groupings of valuation coming on in, 3 and 4 year increments, possibly. The other thing that we look at is, does it bring new housing? Does new housing bring new potential students to your district? Although, again, you're collecting the majority of those new taxes. Is the school district a good partner in saying, we understand you're the ones who have to incentivize new homes to be built. You're the ones who can help us grow our population, or our student body at the school district, along with the county. And this is again why you have the decision to make that. The county's valuation will grow as well, a little bit now and more in the future as those houses roll off. So, to be very honest, most cities in and around this city and throughout Eastern Iowa and the rest of Iowa are offering TIF incentives to developers on housing.
So the LMI money,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say compare us to any other cities. How would Anamosa, what would be the right thing for Anamosa to do to use that money?
So just remember, if you give this incentive, simply put, if the incentive was $100,000 that you were offering, 39.5% means you're going to need to collect $39,500 off that incentive. You're still going to give $100,000 to the developer. So now our asking is $139,000. But we're going to, talk about that $39,000 and ways that some cities have spent that money. It has to be spent within the city limits. That's it. And it has to be spent on the low to moderate income population. In most cases, the cities will pair up with their local COG. So if you use ECIO or you use ECCOG, you would maybe pair up with them, because no one wants to walk into City Hall and turn to your administration and give them their tax returns and say, I meet the low to moderate income population. So that is the one caveat here. So a lot of times cities work with an independent party who can accept applications. The money has been spent. We've seen, if you have a sidewalk replacement program, and let's say you run around in the summertime and identify sidewalks that have been all, beaten up and torn up, and it's in front of individual who has low to moderate income, or is a low to moderate income person, and that's 80% of HUD's median income level, then you could replace their sidewalk and not charge them for that. That would be a simple way. You also can spend the money individually on those people and those homes by helping them maybe replace a roof, by buying down even a home mortgage, closing costs or something like that, replacing water heaters, replacing water softener systems, anything that can help. You also could look at that and say, this person is behind on their utility bill. We saw this during COVID. This person is behind on a utility bill. Maybe they've, been out of a job, or, only had a partial income, and you could have used those LMI monies. I want to remind you, though, that $39,000 that were, just for a big round number, is not coming to you in one lump sum, right? It's coming to you year after year over a 10-year period. So it could take a while for you to accumulate LMI funds. So a lot of times you're doing small things. You could identify a neighborhood that has some, let's just say, issues with sewer. And you could say, well, these service lines to this individual person's home have been failing, and this is a person that meets that LMI standard. And you could help them with that cost of replacing, possibly those service lines from the curb stop into their home, because they meet that LMI standard. But what I was saying at the beginning is, the COG can put out this anonymous application. It can sit at council at the city hall. It can be on your website. It can get sent out in a newsletter. Those applications come back into the COG. Again, people don't have to walk into city hall. They come to you then to be paid out with LMI funds when those funds are available, in an anonymous fashion. You'll get an invoice from your COG that says, We have, house one, house two, house three. Each of them are set to get 1,500. We've done all the background work. And we don't know. This council doesn't know. The public doesn't know where those funds are going to, because that's all an anonymous process, which again, I think a lot of people choose to use the COGS or a grant writing company in that way.
Do developers, and you might have answered this all right, do developers build housing that they use LMI money?
They could. Absolutely. So if you can convince a developer that you would like them to use the LMI that you collect over this 10-year period to put up another housing development that would meet the LMI standards, absolutely. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And those housing units that could be LMI could be some sort of an apartment building where they limit the amount of rent that can be charged. That's, again, a HUD decision on that amount. You'd be shocked at what that amount is. It's a pretty high amount that they can be charging, but that meets the LMI standards. So they'd have to designate that 75% of that building was going to be, LMI applicant only. We have that in a city outside of Waterloo. There's one that's being done. They also could build LMI single family homes. And again, that could be, we look at that from a standpoint. That housing amount is about, I want to say about 150,000. But if you look at like a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom slab style home with no basement and maybe a single stall garage or even a carport, then you're probably fitting within that $150,000 range. Nobody talks about it, but we have tiny homes. That's a thing now. Those probably could meet the LMI standards based on. So yeah, if you can find a developer that could help you spend the LMI dollars that they even generated, because they could be the same developer. It's just, again, remember, those LMI funds aren't just going to come in the bucket. They're going to come in over that 10-year period. So a lot of times it's year 3, 4, and 5 before you start to have even those discussions, because those funds are just starting to flow in. It's a good question.
One last question. What would be the next step that we would take?
Yeah, I think the next step is for you guys to determine, either with Jeremiah and myself or with the developer, and we can convey it to the developer, what you want to do. If the developer is saying we're going to build this many houses and we would like you to rebate back this set amount, you guys decide if that's an amount that you're okay with. Again, they may never get there. We've given some examples, because remember, in housing, so we have our house, right? And our house is $100,000, right? So our $100,000 house has residential rollback. In fiscal year 27, that is 44%. So now I only pay taxes on $44,000 of my home's actual valuation. Of that $44,000, that's probably $2,000 in taxes. Of those $2,000, 60% of that, 60.5% can go to the developer. 39.5 goes back to you, the city. It's just not a lot of money, right? There's just not a lot until you get 30 or 40 homes or whatever that development is. So you definitely want to, set down, and even if the developer says the infrastructure is going to be 1.2 million, I don't think in any of our examples at 11 years you're ever going to get to $1.2 million to give them. So I think it's that you are comfortable with the amount that you want to give them. We've given some examples to Jeremiah that he can discuss with you or send around. And we absolutely could get on a phone call with one of you and the mayor and Jeremiah if you wanted to talk further to make a formal recommendation to the council. But you don't have to take any formal action to move things along. You can tell Jeremiah informally, this is what we're thinking. This is our not to exceed amount. We want just the 10, 11-year agreement. He can discuss that with the developer. If the developer says, okay, we're fine with that, then he can start the process by having him and myself contact your bonding attorney, and they'll start the process. it will come back to you in the form of a public hearing to set a date of public hearing on the urban renewal plan amendment, which basically says this is what we're doing. Hold a public hearing on that plan amendment about a month later. It's a slow process, everyone. We all know this at the city level. Things move at a glacial pace sometimes because of the state law. And then you would enter into the development agreement after that, hold the public hearing on that. So informally, you just kind of get the ball rolling. Formally, everything comes to this council for an actual approval. But that's where we're saying you really want to be on board with the developer as a council before you get to that point, because we don't want to waste your dollars by having bond counsel draw something up that the developer is not going to agree to.
Thank you.
So when does the clock start ticking on, say, a 10-year?
Correct. That's a great question. Clock doesn't start ticking till there's actual dollars to be rebated back. So let's put this into perspective. If this development agreement was, let's say, already in place and moving along, and these houses were going to start to get built this summer, the very first time they're going to show valuation is on January 1st of 27. We all understand how that works. Every January 1st, the county comes out, or before that, they assess your property. We're going to get a fancy little letter here in probably 3-4 weeks that's going to say your valuation as of January 1st, 2026 is this, that first valuation will be January 1st of 27 on houses that got built this summer. You just keep pushing back a year for anything beyond that. In that scenario, 1/1/27 values are fiscal year 29, which means they will pay taxes for the very first time in the fall of 28 and the spring of 29. And so that just means that it's going to be a couple of years. So your 10-year agreement is probably like 13 or 14 years. It's just that there's nothing being rebated back. And year one is the very first year that those properties have paid taxes and you're able to rebate something back to the developer.
Another question, you were talking about low LMI apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time frame on those? Like they have to have them available to low income for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
I don't know if there's not an actual time frame that I'm aware of in our discussions. What we have found is bond counsel usually says, well, because we incentivized the developer over 10 years, you should probably make those an LMI apartment for up to 10 years, meaning that they would income survey for those specific apartments for at least 10 years. So, yeah. But again, I think you'd be surprised. I want to say the LMI, looking at an apartment the other day, I'm going to say it's like $1,150 a month, which to me seems like a lot of money. But that is an LMI like apartment, like rate that they've got to be locked into. And I'm sure on a new construction, it's not a lot of money, but it seems like a lot in rent, right? No, see, no, and yeah, yes, because I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot from, what I paid rent, but,
Low to moderate, it seems high to me. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
I know that workforce housing tax credit is not a part of the TIF discussion directly, but are you familiar with any cities that have the TIF and the workforce development or workforce housing credit working together?
Do you see that often? The nice thing about workforce housing and a TIF agreement is the workforce housing agreement says these houses have got to be built in this 3-year period, right? So for you, that's kind of nice because those houses are bam, bam, bam. They're on the tax rolls pretty quickly. In an agreement where there's no workforce housing, right? It could be 7 years before all those lots get sold and those houses get built. So, maybe in those last, 10 houses only have 2 or 3 years in the agreement. It is common in a workforce housing situation. The workforce housing agreement side of it, we don't really get involved with because you again have worked on that. But there are different things, whatever the city agreed to. But we do find, because the part of the workforce housing agreement does not impact their taxable valuation. That is aside from an impact. And so if it was something that impacted their taxable valuation, then that's where we say, I'm not sure you could use TIF, or TIF might not be lucrative in this situation, but because it doesn't impact the taxable valuation, we do see them get paired up. But workforce housing does not mean that it negates LMI. Usually workforce housing is still exceeding that LMI amount for that like house that I just talked about with the slab and the 1 to 2 bedrooms. So usually you still have LMI set aside in workforce housing.
So if we were to have some sort of the mechanics of a TIF agreement worked out within, say, the next 2 weeks to get it then to the bonding attorney, you're talking roughly 30 days beyond that to get it before the public hearing.
You're talking about, so if we talk, in the next 2 weeks, let's say by first week of April, we're having a conversation with bond counsel, and they are, talking with us. We'll have a 30-minute conversation. We've had a conversation with them kind of leading into this and asking some questions, answering questions, etc. They know what's going on. It probably wouldn't take them a long time to turn documents around, but I would say probably at your second meeting in April, you would start that process. That night, you would set the date of public hearing. That public hearing cannot be for about 30 days. So it's your end of May meeting. That night, you would set the date of public hearing on a development agreement. That development agreement then could come on the first meeting in June for that public hearing. And then that's probably when you would sign. So I'm going to say you could have this all done by the end of June 30th, by the end of your fiscal year, if we got started in the next, 2.5 weeks. I want to also say this, that it does not prohibit the developer. There's nothing in the TIF law that prohibits the developer from starting their project if they have the consensus of this council, right? So if the council all comes together and says, this is what we're offering, the developer says, sure, you could start that process because again, because of the state law, things are going to move slowly, right? We're standing here in the end of March and talking about the end of June, kind of being the fastest this is going to get done. That developer, if they feel comfortable, can start their project as long as they feel comfortable that you, the council, are going to approve that. There's nothing in the law that prohibits them from starting the project before the agreement is fully signed. That is on them to see if they want to do that, if they feel comfortable with this council's decision.
A year earlier, you had mentioned about phases within the agreement.
Correct.
I'm gonna, for somewhat easy math. So if we had a 60 unit development.
Mhm.
We ran it in 3 phases. Does the sunset date of 10 years, is it on each phase or the overall? So
It's on each phase.
for 20 in the first 10, 20 in the second.
Correct. So again, on 3 phases like that, Mayor, you could be looking at, 20 years of rebates. But again, phase 1 is just going to have these first 20 houses, right? And when that 10 years it is done, or you've fulfilled that rebate amount that you said you were going to do, then that's done. And maybe 2 or 3 years in, phase 2 starts because we've sold the majority of the lots. Then that's probably going on its own 10 or 11 years. But one thing I will remind you is that usually phase 1 expenses for infrastructure are more than phase 2 and phase 3. And phase 1 is because you've got to get it from wherever the city's stub is at into the development. Phase 2 and phase 3 a lot of times are just then the extension of the road or the extension of that. Phase 1 typically is the most expensive. Also, we see phase 1 where developers are putting in all the underground infrastructure for the whole development in phase 1. And then in phase 2 and 3, they may just be paving curb gutter, etc. So we can kind of write it, but I will say this, bond council does suggest that we write the phases of each agreement individually on their own in the time that they come up to be done. So instead of writing an agreement that says we're going to have 3 phases, phase 1's going to start now, phase 2 is going to start in 3 years, and phase 3, because we never know that phase 2 and phase 3 are really going to start, or that's something that the developer does because maybe they sell these lots and say, well, I want to change it up. I don't want to make these second phase lots bigger. Or I want to change where the road goes because I think I can get more lots this other way. They really will want you to focus in on phase 1 only at this time. Having the discussion and including that other property in our urban renewal area for phase 2 and phase 3, but really only doing the development agreement per phase when that phase needs to be addressed. It makes it a whole lot easier. I'm going to say this on your end as well, because again, we get to it. There's been some that were done 6 years ago and we're into phase 3, and it's been a nightmare to update rebate agreements because nothing in phase 3 looks like what it was going to be 6 years ago.
Phase being in a sense standalone. The sunset dates, the term dates,
Yep.
they vary through the phases, or you need to be consistent throughout the entire development.
So they could vary. So, I mean, you could put 10 years on the first one, and you could put 5 years on the second one, or 7 years on the second one. Again, that's your decision. Most cities do 10 to the 11 years on any rebate, knowing that if it pays off sooner, it pays off sooner. And again, it's just based on the calculation I said. There's assessed value, there's rolled back value, there's taxes paid, and then there's a split of LMI. There's just not a lot of dollars usually that come out of it unless you're building $1 million houses. And if they're $900,000 houses, then it all of a sudden gets a little bit more lucrative.
So I'm aware that you've been involved with some discussions on this development that we have before us. If you've already stated, can you repeat, what is it that you need to advance expeditiously?
Yep.
On the project, what
Yep.
are you looking for?
Yeah.
What would you need?
One of the items that we need,
Information,
Right.
contracts.
yep, one item that we need is for you guys to make a decision on the not to exceed amount for each of these developments. And I think we have one, there's workforce housing. We have the other one. I think with the other one, that's not workforce housing, because I think workforce housing is pretty straightforward. It's going to be 10 to 11 years. That would be our recommendation. I think they've asked for a set amount. From all examples, I think you would get that amount to them because, again, those houses have a timeline they have to be built in, right? Like the state says they have to be built. So likely that one is a slam dunk. So as long as you agree to their terms or you come up with a term that's less than that, than the number that they've suggested, I think that one can move forward pretty quickly. I think on the other housing development, which is not the workforce housing side of things, what we would need is a not to exceed number. We sort of know, I think they've told us what their estimated infrastructure costs are. And we have to decide based on, some scenarios that we ran you that, I've ran you some scenarios that could get up in the, possibly $800,000, $900,000 range. But if you don't want to rebate back 800 or 900,000, that's your decision. And I fully support whatever your decision is. That has to be the decision of this council, that you're willing to rebate back, a good portion of that or a lesser portion of that. I think that's one of the decisions. I think the other decision is, are you going to just keep this at 11 years, the 10, 11 years, or are you going to allow that to go out to the 15 years? It's not common that they go out to 15 years. I want to say that there are opportunities though, sometimes that developers have said, this housing is really necessary in our community. And that, the city's like, yes, we agree. And we're willing to do, up to the 15 years. Because again, if in year 12, you've rebated them back what we discussed and agreed to, then the agreement is done. So I think you just have to make that decision on, and if you're gonna, go ahead just with the 10, 11 years or the 15. And then I think also on that one, whether or not you're gonna give them the full 60.5%, which is what they could get after the LMI set aside every year, or if you're going to limit that to, 90% of that amount or 80% of that amount, or anything like that. I would say this, most communities are just giving the portion that's not LMI, to the developer. They're usually not limiting it to, 80 to 70 to 60, or even 90% of that. Because again, it can be a very small number in those first few years.
So the first step would be to get that, would be for Bryce and Jeremiah to get together and decide these numbers. That's correct, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, we've run a bunch of examples. We can absolutely get back on the phone, have that discussion. But the council really has to be the one that says it's not going to exceed this amount. Like if they've asked for $1.2 million or $1 million, we're not giving them over 900,000, or we're not giving them over 800,000. And again, we've run some examples where, phase one, you probably could get them close to 900,000 if the house is built out over a 4 to 5 year period. But we've also run some numbers on if it was, just 835, if it was 775, just to kind of just amp it down a little bit. What would that look like? As long as those houses built and those houses were about 350, I think we put 325 or 350 on those houses for valuation number. Just because there's 31 houses. Am I correct? 31? 31 houses.
In actuality, I think we could shave a little time off that anyways. Good follow up with Bryce and just kind of talk to him. I got the inkling that we were kind of leaning towards more of a phased agreement as we did with Meadow Ridge. The council, at least the lengthier term members, are somewhat familiar with that. I think we did the 1.2 million on each of those as the not to exceed. It seemed like that was good. We'll continue to have further conversations, but if that's the case, I mean, it's a quick phone call to Maggie and saying,
right,
again, she's ran most of those numbers. I can have something, I'll send it out to council and the developer simultaneously, get the nod in affirmative or negative and get it to bond council pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So tonight we could do that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is all difficult because until we get to the point where we can make a formal decision, which is actually when the agreement is in front of you, I just need, again, a head nod in a specific direction, and we've pretty much exhausted all of those options. I'm just ready to get whatever sent, and we can get the formal stamp approval. Again, as Maggie said, and as I alluded to last time, I just don't want to bring something before the council that is going to be a showstopper for some reason, and we have to delay or take time to do the process all over again. That does not work out for anybody's benefit.
So Meadow Ridge went pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I came in after the agreements were, of course, done and completed, picked up. I don't think they actually started the rebates until around the time when I got in. So my experience is somewhat limited with that, but yes, if you ask my opinion on that.
And that's 1.2.
1.2, yes, for the not to exceed amount.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember is if you do phase it, phase one and phase two, if there's something that you don't like that the developer did in phase one, you can make sure and tell them that before you sign phase two's agreement. So, in a phased situation, you're really risking that phase. And if everything seems to go exactly the way you thought it was going to go in phase one, we simply, kind of duplicate that agreement for phase two with bond counsel's help and assistance. And if there's been any TIF law changes, anything like that. But bond counsel has to be the one that writes this. They're going to be the ones that defend it. If someone says, you know, it was not done correctly or just not done against the law, they're the ones that are, you know, interpreting that portion of the law for you on an annual basis.
Well, I'd like to move ahead with
So
this.
I do have a question for you, Jeremiah. When were those agreements put in place that you say the rebate started when you?
2018, maybe the beginning of 2019. I think they were drafted in 2018 and maybe approved in 2018, but it's that 10, 11 year period where it actually didn't, I don't know what you start
Yeah.
until 2019.
Yeah. And so, Jeremiah, when did you start in this position? Because I think it was like your very first year, we helped you calculate those, and it was like a first year payoff, which would have been year one.
2023.
Yeah. So year one on a 2018 agreement probably was 22 or 23 was the very first year of that rebate. And that seems right. Maybe not on workforce housing. The workforce housing one probably will snap a little bit faster. And again, that one, just because, again, there's a prescribed time frame that he has to build those houses for the state. So likely, I mean, again, that's like a commercial building. That valuation is just going to be there. It's not going to be, oh, we've got to sell a lot and we've got to wait for those people, because, you know, you could sell a lot and those people may decide not to build on that lot for 2 more years. And that can slow that process to start. But that's where the spreadsheets that we've built, the way that we build them is that they are a example for all of us to look at and talk about, but then they convert into actual tracking. And we track by parcel numbers and house numbers for each of those individual homes. And we will know when is the right time to start asking for money based on when that valuation came in or when that valuation gets updated. We have a whole year of knowledge of that valuation coming online before we have to actually ask for that valuation in the way that the TIF law works. I would say this, if the developer is wanting to do some phasing, then that is a conversation that Jeremiah and I can have with that developer, because that probably will reduce the overall original infrastructure, right? Like if they said, well, this is what it's going to be for all 31 houses, then if we're going to split it into phases, obviously there's not going to be all that infrastructure now in phase 1. It could be over the 2 phases. So we would need to probably ask that question back. And that's very simple to just say, what do you think your, again, infrastructure costs will be? And if they say, you know, if they were to say it's going to be $700,000, before they get a rebate, it's written in the agreement that says they have to provide you the paid like invoices for that infrastructure. Like they have to prove up that they truly spent $700,000 on that infrastructure. But we can't just take their word for it. They will prove up to the city's office with papers to say, yep, we spent that. Now they'll prove that up probably in the next 8 months, right? As the infrastructure gets done, and it still is 2 years, but the agreement says it will be the lesser of this, you know, 800,000 that you've agreed to with them, or whatever they, you know, bring in. It's the lesser of the two. So if they can only prove up, you know, we have a not to exceed of 800,000, they can only prove up 775. The not to exceed agreement is 775,000. So we're hoping that they're getting good estimates and they have good ideas of what it's truly going to cost them.
Is there any other questions or comments? You understand that it's a lot to take in.
Yes.
Maggie, you make it sound so simple, but you are an expert in the field.
Thank you.
And I will only speak for myself. I am not versed on any of this. My occupation doesn't even play around in anything related to this.
We do this every day. I'm pretty sure I could not do your jobs because this is where my expertise lies. So
Well, you did clear up a lot of questions for me.
Good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. And if there are other questions about anything else, and we've got bonding to talk about probably in the future, please let us know. We're happy to jump on a call or have a conversation with you folks because nobody does this every day. We do this every day. So this is where we can be helpful with answering questions.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
I recall, having you or anyone from your office, come before council. It was very value added.
Thank you.
For the presentation. As Rich alluded, I believe it did answer several questions that the 6 elected officials had. And I would encourage we do this again on the next development.
Sounds good.
Just because you mentioned it. At some point, we'll have a bonding discussion. Does our TIF program impact our bondability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So your rebate agreement will be written with what's called annual appropriation language. It's standard in the state of Iowa because there's a court ruling that says in whole, a rebate agreement counts against your debt capacity. So in whole, if you were to say we'd rebate you back $800,000, 800,000 counts against your debt capacity, which is what you can bond against. But with annual appropriation language written in there, you will only have to count the amount that you annually give the developer against your debt capacity. So if in the 7th year, that's $40,000, it's $40,000 that you count and not the 800,000. So it's a really good question.
Thank
That
you.
is standard language that goes into all rebate agreements.
Thank you.
I just want to recap. So my notes here are 3 dot items. Of what needs to occur to advance this project? The not to exceed dollar number. The number of years on the term date,
Mhm.
and then the percentage, whether it's 80%, 100%.
Right.
Rebated back
Mhm.
to the developer. Correct?
Correct. That is correct.
there anything I missed?
No.
I'm one that doesn't like to come back to the table and have second
Nope.
discussions when they should have been up front.
I think the only other thing is, again, if we discuss a phasing, that then just goes into those 3 dot items. Yeah, the phasing just would potentially change some of the numbers that we've already projected. And so we would reproject. Okay,
That's how clear you were.
perfect. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I have a good evening.
Thank you.
I will ask for public comment. I do request that you direct your comment to the, to council. And if we feel that we need to go back to Meg, we will, inquire with her this evening. But I don't want her having to answer public questions. It's council questions that she should answer. So please feel free to come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Next, I'm at 422 Council Street, also with Citizens Bank. I guess I just wanted to say it's positive commentary here. It sounds like you guys are taking this into account to move forward. I think with it out there, there's been a lot of young families brought in through subdivisions like this, developments. Superintendent said last meeting that we're about 100 students down in the district. I guess my thought would be if we hadn't had that, how much further behind would we be? I think this is something you guys want to do to move forward and continue to attract families. I took a quick look today, and if you filter out what's available on the market that are filtering out on sale pending, there's only 5 homes for sale that are under 300,000 in Anamosa today. So it's pretty slim pickings from that. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Positive commentary is good to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Least did your team have anything?
Unless you have a question. Any questions on here, but
Well, I do have a question for you, Bryce. Maggie was talking about the three different phases. Have you priced out the development costs for each of those?
The way
Yeah.
we just have to break it down. We did the last one at Meadow Ridge. The phases were actually set up as phases of all the infrastructure was done in one pass. And the phases were when we brought on houses. So like we had 3 phases we could bring on that was like the first 10 houses were built and we put those in the first phase. Then the next 10 were built and we put those in that phase. And then the third phase was the remaining houses. So basically going back to the where you got 5, 6, 7 years building out the 30 houses. So that way you got in 3 years, you got like the first 10 on, then you have the next 10, but all the infrastructure was built in the first. All the infrastructure is built at that point.
Was built before like the first phase started.
It was, yeah,
That-
all the
okay.
infrastructure was done with the first phase. The phases were just utilizing the ability to push the 10-year, to utilize the 10-year mark that the program restricts it to.
So really, phase 2 and 3, you didn't have any really major expenses. It was all in phase.
All the expense was in phase 1.
And if that's the way the agreement was written, bond council is the one who wrote that agreement, it can be drafted very similarly.
Okay.
But we understand that because what you're trying to do is eliminate the houses in phase 3 from coming on in year 7. You want them to come on in year 1 of
Yeah.
their own new phase.
Yeah, that's how you make, the only way you can make it really work.
You're comfortable with repeating that if council so chooses? What was done in the Meadow?
Yeah, I think that's where we started, kind of was like just what we did in Meadow Ridge, because it's there and it's simple and it's done.
Price, at the last meeting, when you made the presentation, you had discussed though a 15-year program is, am I correct about that?
We talked about the 15-year, but that was to possibly simplify things. And it's just something that we had talked about, I believe, with Beer and the city when we had our meeting.
But you would be comfortable with a similar to the Meadow Ridge?
Yeah, it works just fine.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure I had understood from last.
Yeah,
meeting.
no, it does the same thing. So,
Also, Bryce, you'd be looking at 100% or
yeah,
No one comes to us with it.
yeah. I just got to try to build nicer houses to hit it.
Pretty nice house out there.
Yeah.
any other questions for Bryce or his team? Hey, Bryce, thanks for being on board this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go to our council. I'll go to public again. Is there anyone else that has comments? Feel free.
I would just be redundant with what I said the last time, but I did appreciate the meeting, and this was, like you said, I'm just gonna reiterate, I'm sorry, I have to do this correctly. Aaron's on 712 Kalen Avenue, but, education, I work in finance and I don't work with TIF every day either, so I mean, it's been I don't envy your jobs on the board. You guys do a very nice job. tonight. I'm going to reiterate what was said there. Very educational. Appreciate the questions. Positive outlook on it. Looking for a way to do it. And we certainly support it. It's good for the bank. It's good. The banks are good for the communities when we can work together and take a project like this forward. So very impressed with how you guys handled the meeting tonight, and very impressed with the information I've received. Bryce taught me a lot last week, and you took it to the next, or 2 weeks ago, and you took it to the next level. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, council,
Well,
what say us?
you want us to say we agree, let's go for it.
Well, we met 2 weeks ago and thought things were defined. We revisited tonight. What I don't want to do is revisit in 2 weeks. It is time with a little less of the jaw and a little bit more of the paw making this thing happen.
Well, I've got a question for Maggie, I guess, then. With what Bryce talked about doing a majority of the cost in phase 1, extending on to phase 2 and phase 3, how do you come up with a valuation or whatever for phase 2 and phase 3?
Yeah, so I think what bond counsel would do in that situation, and I'll look back at that agreement that was written. I think we have a copy of it because it was written before we started working with you guys, but I think we do have a copy of it. What they probably would do is set up the not to exceed, if it's $1.2 million, whatever that is, in the first agreement, and it would say, there's potential that this agreement will be amended for phase 2 and amended for phase 3. So then that not to exceed amount would cover not only phase 1, but it would cover phase 2 and phase 3, just meaning as those houses come on. It's still a not to exceed amount of $1,200,000 or $1 million, whatever that is. And if we get there at the end of phase 2, well, there's probably not a phase 3, or if we get there, before we start phase 3, but likely you're going to get there between phase 1, 10 or 11 years, phase 2, and probably some part of phase 3. Yeah, and we'll rerun the numbers because, again, if we put it in that perspective, you probably get a lot closer to the $1.2 million versus, kind of our number of about 900 and some thousand.
I'm confused then, because Bryce just said that it would all be absorbed.
Mhm.
That's the case. Look at anything in phase 2. I understand the terminology.
You won't get $1.2 million in phase 1 because if phase 1 is only 10 houses, there won't be enough valuation. So again, we'll write and maybe this is a better way to explain it. We'll write a development agreement, which is an overarching agreement that will say under this development agreement, it's a not to exceed 1.2 million. And we're going to have the development agreement will talk about phase 1 only. And then under this overarching agreement in 2 years, when Bryce comes back and says, we're ready for phase 2, then we will amend this development agreement and add another development agreement that says under this 1.2, now we have this agreement and this agreement. And then again, we have this agreement in the third. So it really is like an overarching umbrella, and we can stick phases. But again, that's where bond counsel will say, we want to do this phase now, and we want to do this phase. And we don't want to write that all into the agreement because it could be sooner. I mean, they might sell more lots right away, and phase 2 could happen sooner. It could happen a year later than we all anticipate.
He is going to be very aggressive.
So let me ask you this, because let's say today we're just going to, or in June 30th or whatever day, we're approving phase 1. 3 years from now, they're going for phase 2. Council has changed over. Is that locked in for phase 2 because of this, or that council could say, yeah, we're done.
That council could say, yeah, we're done.
Okay.
His 1.2 million still is out there as a not to exceed, and whatever he would get off those phase 1 houses are there. And then if in 3 more years, the council changes again and he comes back and says, well, now I'm ready to start phase 3 because you didn't do anything for me for phase 2. Council could approve a phase 3 agreement under that overarching 1.2
So
million.
it's not locking in today, so it is putting a little risk onto his shoulders for phase 2 and phase 3
Yeah.
at this point.
The hope and goal would be that if Bryce is doing or the developer is doing what he says he's going to do and building you the houses, that the future councils would recognize that and say, he's been a good person. It's been a good development for our community and we're willing to continue to offer incentives.
All phases remain fluid.
That's the way bond council would like them to remain. And we did have that conversation with them up front because again, that we have seen it in the last 5 years where agreements were written, 10 years before that, and they were very convoluted. And bond council says that doesn't do anything for you as a city. It really restricts what you can do. It's locked in at the 1.2 because if all the infrastructure is being done, the 1.2 is the number at agreement number 1. And it's locked in again because again, they have to produce those documents to prove up the 1.2 million, if that makes sense.
So let me ask you this, what happens if the law changes in the middle of the phases?
If the law changes in the middle of the phases, there might not be a phase 2 or phase 3, right? That if TIF just goes away, we believe, I say this with no certainty whatsoever, but obviously all these cities have entered into these development agreements with these developers that there would probably be a class action lawsuit or some sort of grandfathering in of existing TIF agreements to fulfill their obligations, whether it's for the next 5 or 10 years based on that. But you may not be able to write new agreements. In that case, we would hope that some other incentive program would come forward that the state could offer or at the local level, because otherwise I believe statewide there would be a lack of development.
Yes.
I would agree.
But no, it's been talked about.
It's not actively in this legislative session. TIF is not actively being discussed because property tax reform is the big kicker there. But there's about 6 different bills that all want 6 different things out of property tax reform. So we're not really sure where that ends. But there's no removal in any of those bills of TIF. So we think that TIF is probably, I'd say, safe for a couple more years, just to see, because their focus is more on property tax reform. And honestly, the property tax reform bills, again, none of them really touch TIF as a collective. Could it have an impact? Slightly, but they don't really touch or eliminate them at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bryce has been a good partner to us in the previous developments. I foresee him still being an excellent partner throughout this next development.
I guess from where I sit, we've got a great new set of schools and lots of money that have been poured into making them second to none as far as I can tell. I would also agree with the assessment that we're not going to generate any revenue if we don't develop what we've got. All 3 of the banks, although not all, well, I guess all of our banks have, I think, expressed interest and desire to work with these programs or to work adjacent to them. I have not had anybody that has approached me that has been publicly against this development. And as Mayor Smith indicated, in this particular instance, we have a developer who has shown the ability to meet the expectations that have been set before. I think it's time for us to move forward. I guess where I said I would say I would be comfortable with the not to exceed language of the 100 or 1.2 million under the phased 10-year programs, and I haven't heard a reason otherwise why we wouldn't rebate or refund or whatever the language is up to the 60.5% or 100% of what would be the payout, I guess. However, I'm supposed to say that.
Yeah, no, we do the maximum after LMI set aside, maximum after LMI set aside.
That's where this council sits.
I'd agree.
Well, I thought I just heard that in the form of a motion.
I will make it a motion.
I'll second.
Say, I think we already have a second. Now council will open us back up for your discussion to finalize prior to going to vote.
I guess the other thing is, as we're working through this, if this passes, I would hope that we could sort of have the agreement that when Bryce is comfortable moving forward while we're waiting for the paperwork shuffle to be taken care of the state, and that we'll be able to do that.
Because you're saying 1.2 million. That's on the one project. The other project, what was it, Bryce? 550. So are we just talking one project, or are we gonna talk both projects?
So I guess I forgot about that.
My preference would be to have two separate motions, as they're in a sense two separate projects. We have the details of the 1.2, the term date, the percent. Let's bring that to vote. Circle back around to a motion on the second one. We can go from there. Bryce might have a different.
No, I just had one thought since kind of with the formal of it. I know when we talked with Spear in the city, a couple months ago, that's when the 15-year got mentioned. And it was to kind of save the hassle of phase 2, phase 3 paperwork. I think we went back to 10 because we just have to go to this county and the school board to get the agreement done. But as much, is it simpler to just do the 15 and get those signed off now? Because they're both in favor. That's just done. Because that's kind of where you guys were talking before.
That's the discretion of the council. You can just approve the 15. It's one agreement. And it'll be up to 15 years. It won't go any further than that. And, but again, bond council would write up the documents, and both the school board and the county board of supervisors have to approve that at a meeting. That would take place in this April to May timeframe.
But that would be in phase, or
That would have no phases. It would be one agreement up to the maximum of the 15 years. Not to be 1,200,000. No, it would just be on the one agreement, because I think the other
one's gonna move quick enough.
Yeah, the workforce housing, we believe is gonna move. It would not be our recommendation on workforce housing to go out, which is 15 years.
two separate ones.
Yeah.
Right. We think the 11 years should be sufficient
Gotcha.
on the workforce housing, because that one's gonna move pretty quickly, and we know that.
And that's the Cuba spot we're talking, okay.
Are we still comfortable with two separate motions? Or do you want this all approved?
Well, with that information, I think we should keep it separate because it's gonna involve two different lengths.
Yeah, I was just thinking while you were talking, to have that option there, because if that's gonna be a simpler way for the future.
It's on the school board and the county to meet and adopt, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, now they won't meet again for another 30 days unless they enter into some type of special
No,
session.
we'll just get into we'll get into the next meeting once it's drafted, and if it takes
So meet tonight, they won't meet again for.
I know, but we're all comfortable with that if it takes a little bit more time.
Yeah, because you won't start your proceedings till the end of April anyways on this, and so that agreement would get drafted with those proceedings. So it would fall actually in the right time frame to go to them.
Well, then I guess I would amend my motion then to a single 15-year term and not to have three separate phases to a 10-year term. But otherwise keep it.
I'll second them.
Which is that answer? Or is
Yeah,
that-
that answers that.
So we don't want to go to the phases. We want to wait
If I
15
understand-
years before we get any taxable revenue from these developments. Right?
I
But-
thought
but
it was
it's-
different ones.
But it,
Yes, but for
Well-
Northlands.
for Northland,
For Northland.
Yeah.
there was originally 3 phases now. But with the not to exceed 1.2, what is your estimation of when that might be reached?
I didn't have that one with me, kind of dropped off with that one. It was. I want to say it was year 13 or 14. So it was a little bit sooner than the 15 years.
And under the 10-year, we would be looking at.
Yeah, because at 11 years, we were looking at the developer in those last couple of years receiving about $138,000. So if you keep adding that, and that was about $900,000. So if you keep adding about 140,000, you're probably at year 13. That potentially they would get all $1.2 million back.
So it'd be relatively about the same.
2 years.
By not doing phases, that would protect another council from coming in.
It would protect other
Change.
council and it could potentially protect law.
That makes sense.
And administratively, it's easier on.
A lot of people.
I
Right.
said that.
I'm comfortable with the 15-year. 1.2, not to exceed 1.2, and to pay 100% of that 60.5% back to the developer.
I'll second that.
Okay. Everybody has it all figured out. I'm gonna go to vote. But I don't want to cheat you. If you got a question or comment, concern, well, let's have that discussion now. Okay, Kaylee, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Jada,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Bert,
Yes.
Kraft,
Yes,
Kate Smith.
Motion to enter into this, or propose this tip agreement, carries. I will go into the second leg of the next tip. Do we need to have more discussion? I can get a right to a motion.
well, I've got a question.
Okay.
For Bryce. Because I'm looking back at your sheet from, 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
It says for this project, the developer requested either a 520,000 TIF rebate over 12 years. So you want it over 12, not 10?
I think I was just doing that off of what with the county and stuff.
Okay.
So,
10-year, 10-year.
yeah, I'm fine with the 10. Yeah, the 10, 11, yeah.
We show, yeah, 'cause we show like.
Yeah.
It's over 70, it's over 572,000. That would be collected, so. They're not to exceed amount.
Okay, because on here you've got a 500.
I think I think there were two different things in there that were, yeah, written,
So which number is the right number?
the taller one.
That was our.
550?
Written in here and I've got for the. So I do take good notes in our conversation.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Rich.
At this lower year, the school or the county don't have to approve.
No, this will be, yeah. So again, they'll go hand in hand timeline wise.
Yeah.
There just will be no documents to show
Sure.
the county and the school on this behalf.
So I'll make the motion for the 550 cap over 10 years.
Second.
I have a motion by Rich, second by Todd. Council discussion.
Bryce, would you be building these at the same time?
So you can buy one for in-laws and your parents. You can move, I mean,
I'm good right
Plenty of
now. I'm
houses, man.
sorry.
Is there any public comment on this second motion? Again, I'll ask council, anything at this time? Haley, would you please conduct a roll call?
Weimer,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Casement,
Yes.
Jada,
Yes.
Second motion to, for not to exceed number and term date carries. Thank you again, thank you very much for being here.
I'll get in touch with that couple tomorrow. We'll get this from on forward.
Thank you very much.
Honestly, I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Trace.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Night, Anamosa, everybody. That's a great job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Jeremiah. If the two agreements, motions carried. What do you need to move it?
I don't think I need
You got
anything.
everything.
Yep, I think that was, and Maggie being a partner in this, she's got all the notes as well. She's going to reach out to Dorsey and Whitney tomorrow, and I will do the same, and we'll get it moved forward.
We should be looking at roughly the end of April to see something for us.
Yeah, it sounded like she might have had maybe a slightly delayed timeline according to me. I was hoping to have some to the council next meeting. She had made the comment it might be one meeting after that, but I think Dorsey and Whitney, we've been in communication. I would like to think they might be able to turn it around by next meeting, but it will be within the next couple of meetings.
I guess I would like to see, I am requesting status update report, you know, don't have to be lengthy of how this is advancing. And I know you might get some this week, some next week, but if you could put something together weekly, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say it was a good move having her here. Well, thank you for that.
The value. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 5.0 public hearings. 5.1 public hearing to enter into a 3-year service agreement with Cintas not to exceed $9,240 a year to lease and maintain AED units at city facilities. Item A, mayor opens the public hearing. The public hearing is open, proceeding for discussion. So at this time, please come to the podium, state your name and your address and address the council. Again, any inquiries?
No.
Item B, mayor closes the public hearing. The public hearing is now closed. 5.2, review and approve 3-year service agreement with Cintas not to exceed $9,240 a year to lease and maintain AED units at city facilities.
Move to approve. Second.
A motion by Rich, second by Brian. Council discussion.
7. I think I put it in last council packet. I did not include it in there.
Public comment? Haley?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Casement,
Yes.
Jada,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Motion to enter into service agreement carries. 5.3, public hearing to enter into a 5-year service agreement with Axion not to exceed $11,268.80 a year to lease and maintain tasers at the Anamosa Police Department. Item A, mayor opens a public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Proceedings for discussion. Anything come through on this one?
No.
Item B, mayor closes the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed.
Make a motion to approve.
Let me read it.
Oh, sorry.
5.4, review and approve 5-year service agreement with Axion not to exceed $11,268.80 a year to lease and maintain tasers at the Anamosa Police Department. We have a motion by Dan, second by Todd. Council discussion? Public comment? Haley?
Kurt,
Yes.
Yes.
Casement. Yes. Jada,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Kinsman,
Yes.
Motion to approve service agreement carries. 5.5, public hearing to enter into a 5-year service agreement with Telecom Systems of Iowa not to exceed $732.77 a month, plus a one-time fee of $435 to upgrade the phone system at city facilities. Item B, mayor opens the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Proceedings for discussion.
Any questions on this proposal?
So what's our normal phone bill right now for these phones?
So, as I mentioned in my email, it's phone bills. We have multiple companies we're paying, and it's roughly $8,793.24 a year. I'm sorry, $6,530.25. The updated one will be $8,793.
Okay, so we're gonna be paying 2,000 more.
About 2,000 more a year. Yes.
But as I didn't realize till we got the memo, but currently if I call City Hall with a question and you transfer me to Steve at water treatment, that doesn't work.
There is no transfer. We're not on the same systems.
We need to get into the 20th century at least.
Yeah.
Very
And since
interesting.
these are VoIP phones, you can take it home with you and plug it into your network and answer the phone call if it's bad weather, so you could have it. Yeah, you can do a lot more
Yes.
with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any comment from public?
No comment unless the library's been getting comment to the negative, just from not having any phones.
Don't ask for something if you really don't need it. Trust me, I wouldn't give anything not to.
It's tax season and there's no fax machine. It's been a struggle.
Item B, mayor closes the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. 5.6, review and approve 5-year service agreement with Telecom Systems of Iowa not to exceed $732.77 a month, plus a one-time fee of $435 to upgrade the phone system and city facilities.
Move to approve.
I got Kay on the motion. Rich, are you on the second?
Yeah.
All right.
How soon can they get these installed?
They're chomping at the bit waiting. They said they could do it immediately. I don't know installation time from start to finish, but he said they could begin ASAP. They're aware of the library's issues, so
Okay.
I'm guessing they'll start on that first. That will be what I encourage them to do.
Okay.
Anything else from council? Public comment? Haley?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Jada,
Yes.
Casement. Yes. Crown,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Motion to approve the service agreement carries.
I do have one comment. If I remember right, Aaron said your internet down here is a little wonky sometimes.
It can be, but the internet, I yell at people when they don't do this because it's not on the recording.
Hi, I'm the Village Library Director. Our internet is a little bit wonky, but I'm not too worried about it right now because our internet is free. We are a courtesy account. It is a carryover that Mediacom was doing 20 years ago or whatever. So if we leave our courtesy account, we will not have free internet anymore and we can never get it back. So I'm going to keep it as long as it's still working because I don't want to add the expense.
Because these will be going over the internet, I don't know if that's gonna cause you any issues or not.
It should be fine. But they're just phones. So if it was something that was going through and like all of our calls were video calls, I might have an issue when all of the computers were full, but since it's just calls, it should be fine.
Even if it's a little wonky, sometimes it can cause problems, or just kind of monitor it for a while.
I'll take some problems if it works. Now we have nothing, so
Okay.
take what I can get.
Let us know. Haley, can you conduct a roll call, please? Art? Oh, we already did that on my bad.
Yeah,
Rich was just doing follow.
I'm doing a follow, yeah.
6.0, postpone items, unfinished business. 6.1, resolution 2026-15, setting the date for a public hearing on proposed annexation of real estate, including 2 parcels owned by the city of Anamosa and separate by Dave and Karen Jenkins.
Move to approve a public hearing for April 13th, 2026 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Todd. Council discussion.
I am not too prideful on this one. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Basically, this has just been a disastrous process. We thought we had met all the requirements. Reached out recently and said he had some issues, did not go through apparently. So we had to backpedal a little bit, got some conflicting information from the city attorney and what we thought that we had done. Basically said I would start the process over. So that's what we're doing. We needed to send it out to a few people, Secretary of State, DOT. We didn't hit all of our steps, so.
Public comment? Haley?
Weimer,
Yes.
Jada,
Yes.
Kate Smith. Yes. Crump,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Vincent,
Yes.
Motion to set date for public hearing carries. 7.0, council action items. 7.1, review and approve purchase request for 2025 Chevy Silverado 250 HD 4-wheel drive double cab in the amount of $29,100. 62,017 less 32,917 insurance and settlement to replace public utilities vehicle damaged by fire.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kay. Second by Tim. Council discussion.
So the 29,100, what? Will that come out of the general fund? And will it come out of, or what budget is it?
It will not come out of the general fund. This one will be Steve and I are going to continue to look, see if we can find where we could come out of the wastewater public utilities enterprise fund if we can. Otherwise, it'll come out of their reserves.
Thank you.
So if we're paying for a new pickup, what other things are we gonna have to pay for above the insurance deductible amount?
That's a good question. We don't know yet. The adjusters, there was 2 separate adjustment processes. One was for the structure, one was for the truck. We're getting information back still on the other. I'm not sure that we've seen a final settlement yet.
No, Steve, utility superintendent. No, we haven't. The only other thing that's going to have a depreciation value will be the roof on the wastewater plant. Because there's some damage to the roof. The building inspector cannot determine whether it was age, whether it was because of the fire. There's some separation and stuff in the insulation
on the roof. So what the insurance adjuster told me the other day is we will have to pay a portion of that. But I don't know what yet. I just got the first quote in. I'm waiting on the second one to then send to him for that.
With us, with having to pay an unexpected expense, we were tight already down there.
Understand?
We wouldn't raise the water and wastewater rates if we weren't.
Mhm.
To me, taking care of everything that we have to have first would be the way to go. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that?
This pickup though too, because we're down a vehicle. This is our work order truck that we use to go to houses, changes and stuff like that. We also use this truck for to haul fuel to the excavator because we had a 100-gallon tank in the old one. That way you don't have to load the excavator back up on the trailer, drive it all the way to the wastewater plant, or Shane take it to the street shop. So that's what we use this truck for a lot. So
I understand that you feel we need this, but you have how many trucks down there now that are operable?
we have, let's see, there's one sitting at the wastewater plant, and then have my pickup, our white Dodge, and then we have an old squad car right now.
I just don't ever want to get to a point that we don't have enough. I mean, I would think our wastewater plant, well, I know it comes first before anything. So I just want to I just rather see that paid for first before.
Let me, if I could, just comment on that just briefly,
Please
because
do.
it's really important. So these are two separate claims. So we will get the claim for both, and we can only spend the claim money on those separate items, no matter what. So the portion that we are getting for the truck has to be spent on a new truck. Not necessarily these new trucks, but it does have to be spent on a new truck. We will get a separate claim for the structural side of things, which will have to be spent on the structural side of things. So if we don't use the money that we're getting for the truck, we're essentially saying no to the claim payout. We don't want any money, and we won't get any money. We won't use it. We won't get the claim payout. So regardless, we don't want to turn away free money.
So that makes sense now to me. I'm just, looking at the big picture of everything.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's kind of they are giving us money for the replacement of a truck, and that money's coming our way no matter what.
Okay.
And the other items, like Jeremiah said, they all fall under the building, the parts and pieces that we had, the camera, the other stuff. Whatever I'm getting for a price, that's what they're telling me that they're paying us for.
But you can see why I have
Yep,
that.
understand.
But that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Do they depreciate our blowers off then, Steve? How are they doing that?
Whatever it costs to replace it is what I'm being told. The only two things that are being depreciated out would be the roof and then the pickup.
Will this come out of the 25-26 budget or 26-27?
Good question. I guess we don't know at this point because we haven't received the full claim yet. We're hoping to move it along, and we will know shortly. If we can, we're going to try to squeeze it in before the end of the fiscal year.
Is this truck sitting somewhere?
Yes, this truck is sitting on the lot right now.
It's approved tonight. They'll hold it, or you'll take possession right away.
Next week.
And then that come out of this.
Oh, if you're speaking just of the truck, then yes. Sorry, I thought you were talking all the claims.
Just this one item.
Yes.
Anything else? Council? Public comment? Haley?
Shada,
Yes.
Hickman, Crump,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Van Smith,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Motion to approve, payment, or purchase of the pickup carries. 7.3, review and approve amended 2026 contract for grave digging services.
Everything in red is new. All the rest of it is current. Council has any questions on that? I think I've explained we need a signature on this one.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich. Council discussion. Public comment. Haley, please.
Kate Smith. Yes. Kraft,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Shada,
Yes.
Motion to approve contract for grave digging services carries. 7.3, review and approve consent agenda. Pay request totaling $18,106.87. There are 5 items. I'll read all 5 off, after which council can make the motion, which includes the word consent. That will bring all 5 up for discussion in a single vote, or council can make a motion on any of the items. Item A from Climate Engineers in the amount of $14,928 for the wastewater plant catwalk safety upgrades. Item B, ECOG in the amount of $675 for the downtown facade revitalization project. Item C from ECOG in the amount of $437.50 for the wastewater treatment plant flow EQ project. Item D from Dairy Plums and J said in the amount of $374 for the downtown facade revitalization project. Item E from Martin Garner in the amount of $1,692.37 for the downtown facade revitalization project.
Move to approve consent agenda.
second,
Motion by Rich, second by Kay. Council discussion.
This climate engineering completes that project, then this is the final payout.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Steve, is that? So you're also doing the catwalks down at that old info building too?
That's what this
That's
is.
what okay.
This, so we, a couple months ago, we paid for the catwalk. They built it, but it turned so cold, we couldn't get the building cleaned up. So I said, hey, if you want to submit me a bill for the pieces, we pay that. That's what I did. This is for the installation, which they did last week, and it's complete. It's great.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Public comment. Haley?
Kraft,
Yes.
Kate Smith,
Yes.
Shada,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Consent motion to pay request carries. 8.0, city administrators report.
Mr. Mayor. We had one thing that we tabled last week or last meeting.
And
Do we bring that back up again, or is that just a done deal?
It's not on this evening's agenda.
Okay.
You could.
I just don't want to delay that project.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess during council reports, briefly make whatever statement, but there cannot be any type of action received. Well, we can't do anything about it tonight.
I assume that, but
8.0 city administrators report.
I have several items. First of all, Marshall's not with us this evening. He is at a Parks and Recs conference. So we'll look for a report from him on how that went. Spring cleanup, Saturday, April 18th from 7 to 12 p.m. Just another notice. It's been on the website. We'll post it, get on social media and send a notice to the paper to get that out. CDBG downtown facade follow-up. I did not include this as an agenda item on here, but the discussion was the possibility of looking at the church to use that. Martin Gardner, the hard surface or lack of hard surface was a problem. So we just resorted to Plan B, which was the parking lot south of City Hall, which is where we used the last time. We requested that the post office workers, which is generally who uses that most of the time, we requested that they not use it, but we opened up our parking lot to allow them to use that. So we'll do the same again. And then the only other thing is I will be out of the office most of this week attending the Iowa City County Management Association Conference in Iowa City. But I will have my phone and email on me, so let me know if you need anything.
With you being at the conference, are you looking to multitask to be able to advance and have discussions on the earlier tips?
I will have it on my laptop.
Jeremiah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Couple of. They're not action items and I'm not seeking a motion or anything, but you did provide us with some other updates in emails earlier this week that dealt with some other projects going on or requests for agreements. When will those things be on upcoming agendas? Or is there any need to address them in the near future, I guess is the good question.
You're referring to the real estate matters?
Real estate, we also have a project out that's kind of been delayed side of town, and then the memorandum of understanding will be sent to us.
Yes, so the MOU we're gonna have to look into as far as a future meeting. I planned on putting it at the next meeting if the council's ready to move on that. We just need to digest that information. Thank you for the real estate. Kaylee also just brought up, I about forgot it. I will talk to the mayor. I would like to have a special meeting Monday. Mayor has to call that technically, but to discuss the real estate matters. And then we were a bit behind at City Hall with getting the budget done. So we need to call or we need to pass a resolution to have the budget adoption public hearing. We still want to have that on the 13th, but we'll need a resolution. So hopefully Monday I'll get that.
So this coming Monday,
This coming Monday, a special meeting for that. Yes. Okay.
Anything else?
Probably 6 p.m. and most likely at the city council chambers.
9.0 mayor and council reports, 9.1 mayor's report. I just want to thank the council for their quick action tonight on the TIP. I would agree with what Aaron Zumbaugh said as he left this evening, that it is a good night for Anamosa. This development, residential development, will fill a lot of needs in the community. Jeremiah, I am going to authorize or approve whatever special meeting we need to align for Monday the 30th.
Thank you.
They will be open sessions or closed sessions.
The real estate portion will be closed sessions. And I will send out the email from the city attorney. Just check my phone, got something this evening indicating that the city is authorized as such to do that. The rest of it though will be open.
Two separate agendas, or can you combine them all?
I'll put it all on one agenda and then just the closed session portions as agenda items.
Also, as Jeremiah has pointed out to the public, the Amnesty Day, cleanup day. It is a few weeks out. I strongly recommend to the public to do due diligence and make arrangements, whatever arrangements may be needed to transport your unwanted items. There will be some restrictions on what the city will take. Make whatever arrangements necessary to get that down to the streets, department building. As this will only come around once a year. 9.2 council reports. Brian, before you're going to still bring something up, let's hold and.
No, I'm not gonna bring it up.
10.0.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bring it up.
Council reports? Ten point zero, public comment for items not on the agenda.
Utility superintendent, I just found out this afternoon that Boomerang is going to start the Hickory Street sewer lining project either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. So that project will be kicking off here real short. So.
Updates.
Mhm.
11.0. Adjournment. This evening's meeting is adjourned. Somebody.
We did.
Go ahead and make your statement, even though we're adjourned.
March 30th, next Monday, we're going to be hosting a blood drive. Here is LifeServe, and that is the people that have a contract with our local hospital. So spread the word because we're trying to raise blood in our community for our local hospital. Give your life blood for the community that gives blood to you, something like that. It sounds kitschy, but I'm just going to say it'll be here next Monday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
You're fine.